Cool.
All right. All right, we ready to roll? All right, welcome back to the Central Connection. I have an honor today to introduce Enoc, and I need to get your last name for it.
Sanchez.
Enoc Sanchez. That's awful of me.
All good.
So yeah, Enoc's been in Dubuque for over a decade now.
Yep.
Player in Dubuque now in the Latin community, in working with Unidos Dubuque, and you went to Emmaus. So we're going to get to know Enoc today. So this is the whole point of the Central Connection, is to have conversations and go deep and get to know people who are playing a role in our community. The exciting part for me is that you represent a big, portion of the Latin community in Dubuque. Mm-hmm. So that's something that's enticing and exciting. And you've hosted, more recently, I missed the event, but it was one of the largest attended, incredibly attended event. So we're going to dive into that, but we want to learn more about you. So welcome. And let's get going here. So
No, thanks for having me. I mean, I always find it a pleasure when people want to know my story and know the stories of my people, my community. I mean, to me, a lot of these folks, they have a story to tell too. A lot of them are quiet. A lot of them are nervous. They're shy. And, for them to be able to have somebody that will be a conduit to their story, or be able to just, be able to give them something to feel where they're from again, or feel something positive about their community. I mean, to me, it's an honor and a pleasure to be that person.
That's cool. So David, you and David had a great chat. I got to catch all of that. But one thing that stuck out to me is, born in New York.
Yep.
And in the Bronx.
Yep.
And one of a few New Yorkers. So you identified when you got to meet other people in Dubuque that had this connection to New York. Mm-hmm. I think that there's probably more people that we don't even know that have that strong connection out there, but your East Coast connection, but you came here specifically for school.
Yeah.
So start with where you came from in New York and what that was like growing up. Let's hear from you from that.
Okay. So, I came in 2013. So just a little over a decade that I've been here. I came for Emmaus Bible College. I mean, I came for college. And if you would have told me then, like, oh, you're going to spend more than 4 years in Dubuque, I would have said absolutely not. No, like, absolutely not. So, I came out here. I came for college. I was just still being myself. I mean, I grew up in a polar opposite world. Dubuque is a city of 60-some, 70-some thousand people if you include the county.
Yeah.
Just my borough alone had more than 1 million people in it. I mean, I grew up in the Bronx. The city of New York has over 10 million citizens and folks that live in it. So already those dynamics are very different. I was used to being able to get food anywhere at any time.
At Emmaus, you're out there.
I'm in the West End, and then everything was shut down by 9 o'clock. It was too quiet. I couldn't sleep my first 2 weeks when I got out here because it was just
too quiet.
Too quiet. I needed a sound machine. I had to go on Spotify, look for cityscape sounds, and I just needed something I need to feel like I'm at home. I need more noise. I think one time, one of the emergency services had passed by Emmaus and by my dorm, and I was like, I feel like I'm at home.
So comforting.
Yeah, so comforting. I'm sorry for whatever's going on, but so comforting.
That's interesting. Yeah. But you shared a little bit about, where you grew up, which sounded really, I think relatable for a lot of people, but you grew up in a neighborhood it felt like a really strong sense of community. And I feel like you kind of have that now here as you've ingrained yourself in Dubuque, but speak to that, what it was like growing up in your background as a kid.
So the two more critical places that I grew up that felt community, that was my address was 2050 Valentine in the Bronx. There, it is the quote unquote hood. And, across the street there were a set of these single family homes. Some of them would burn down every so often because either, drug addicts got in there or something, usually a lot of squatters. On the other side, though, there were older folks, folks easily in their upper 60s and 70s that had lived there, that they're the types that, they're on their porch, they're looking outside, they see everything going on. So they obviously got to know who I was and got to know, my family. And, that is part of that sense of community. Where the most impact happened in my life was when we lived in an address 455 North Broadway in Yonkers, just above the Bronx. And in Yonkers, it was the same thing, only there were more families. There were people that, same thing, they watered their plants, they had, the front porch, and they would look at me. They knew I was Alex's son. My father was the superintendent, so he was kind of like the handyman, the working man around the building. It was like these rows of like kind of like quasi townhouses, single family homes. And when you grow up with so many different types of people, you do learn how to be a community. I mean, I was friends with kids whose parents were immigrants from all over the world, from Europe, Asia, Africa, Latin America, of course, like
Interesting.
everywhere. So everyone had a story. People worked in different things. People were teachers. Some of them were aspiring doctors. Some of them were journalists. Some, everyone came from somewhere else. And that specific address, it was kind of like in a cultural boundary where if you got up to the top of the hill and you made a left, you were going into the more like rich, affluent part of Yonkers. But if you made a right turn, you were headed into the Bronx, and it was starting to become a little bit more, dangerous, a little bit more like don't walk past 9 o'clock there. And, we had baseball diamonds, a couple blocks away, and a park, and good pizzeria, good Chinese food. And it's like, you got this whole rounded world of community and people who, they cared. They cared about their property and they cared about their stuff, but they also cared about what was going on outside as well. When they saw us misbehaving, they knew exactly who to call. They would call my dad, Alex, your son is this, this, and that. So I knew I had to be on my best behavior at all times because I was being watched.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's it. How does that compare to what you've experienced here in Dubuque?
What's funny is that Dubuque mimics a lot of it in terms of people who still care. When people still care, you get a better sense of community. It's annoying sometimes, yeah. It's annoying if you have that neighbor that complains. It's annoying if you have that person that's looking out at you. But if they care, then that means they're willing to build community.
Yeah.
That means that they're willing to, maybe not always, but it means that they, they're not looking for the worst either.
They want to preserve a good
thing.
thing.
They want to preserve a good thing. And Dubuquers have struck me as very community focused people.
Yeah.
Everybody. And people who care. I mean, look, I'm not going to mince words. Dubuque has a very checkered racist past. And it still exists. And we all got to be honest with ourselves. But at the same time, I've also met some of the nicest people in the world out here. I've met some of the most just gentle, open-minded, and open-doored people than I've ever met, even in New York.
Interesting. Yeah, so you've experienced Dubuque through the lens of college. So tell me about that. Like what it was like at Emmaus Bible College. You grew up in a very strong
Christian evangelical background.
Okay, yep. Christian evangelical background. And then how did you make it, first of all, to Emmaus, and then where did that take you?
So they had a lot of alumni back in the 90s that had returned back to the New York area to be pastors, to be, youth leaders, and then live there. So I got that influence because I would go to Bible camp in the summers too. So that was the first level of influence. The second was they did a conference that my church would go to every May around Memorial Day weekend called Iron Sharpens Iron. So I got exposed to the Midwest. I actually didn't see so much corn until I first started coming out to those conferences back in like 2009.
Oh, wow.
So I would come once a year anyways, a couple years prior to being a student. My father said something critical once in the car, which is what led me to come to Emmaus. And that was, we think you're going to be a better man leaving Emmaus than leaving a college in New York. So when he said that, I was like, all right, I feel like this is a charge that I need to go and just be
a challenge
to be a better man. So those were the catalysts that got me to Emmaus. And then, like any college student here in Dubuque, all of the colleges and the universities here are a bubble to one extent or another. You live on campus. Your life is campus. Yes, you're going to go out maybe for a little bit of the nightlife. Maybe you're going to go out to work somewhere that's off campus. But for the most part, it's a bubble. So the college student does not have the most clear lens of Dubuque because the lens is strictly whatever their campus is.
Interesting. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the bubble of Emmaus like? I mean, It
was a tight bubble. It was a tight bubble. I mean, I'll be, just straight up about it. Emmaus has a strong bubble because the Christian evangelical community is a community that also is very community focused, but community amongst themselves very focused. So we did do a lot of family events throughout the year. We did a lot of church-focused events throughout the year that kept us on campus. A lot of requirements that kept us on campus.
Yeah.
So our bubble is a tight bubble. And so Emmaus students didn't go out a whole lot. Some of us did. Like I used to work at the Hotel Julian. That was one of my ways to get out.
Oh, wow.
I was a lifeguard for a little bit. you know, those were avenues for me to get off campus.
At the pool at the hotel?
No. I was a lifeguard at Flora Pool
Oh,
for a
cool.
couple summers.
Yeah, great pool to lifeguard at.
Oh yeah, it was great. It was great. Sutton was great too. Flora was fun. I mean, I met a lot of really cool people.
So that got you out of your bubble and got you to
it got me to meet people and again.
So you stayed through the summer?
I would stay through some summers too. Yeah.
Wow.
Because I mean, that's how you meet people. I mean, you gotta say hi. You gotta put yourself in those positions. Like, hey, what's up? My name is Enoc. Like, you know, where are you from? Like, most of them are Dubuquers, but again, that's how I started to get exposed to Dubuquers, and I was like, okay, yeah, you guys are cool. You guys are nice.
And so you're also a DJ. That's something that came out of college, correct?
That is something that came out of college, happened through college. That's something I think that I was partially destined, and I don't mean that as like I'm the next Tiesto or Steve Aoki or something crazy, Calvin Harris. But
why not?
That's a different level. But more so, music has been my passion all my life. And then I honed it in doing a lot of weddings. Christian colleges will have more weddings than the average college.
Makes sense, yeah.
And then when I left Emmaus, and then that fall of 2018, you know, I'll never forget the day Susan and Scott were like, we need a new DJ for Latin nights, because we weren't a big fans of the previous ones. And
which is happening at the Smokestack?
This was happening at the Smokestack in 2018.
You and David talked deeply about this. So tell me more about that, because that was a really fun, exciting kind of adventure that went on there. So Latin nights, and this is what's all kind of led you to the culmination of where you are now and being a leader in that community.
Yeah. So Latin nights before was being done by DJs, you know, that were coming from Platteville. They predominantly played cumbia, norteñas, music that's specific to Mexico.
Okay.
Which is like sidetrack. Like that's one thing that Latinos here we have to buck at constantly, is that just because we speak Spanish, we're not Mexican. Not that there's something wrong with being Mexican, but we have our country. We have our flag.
You're Dominican.
I'm Dominican. Very proud of it too.
So break it down for me in the Latin community. Where do you see most of the population coming from?
Most of it is in Dubuque and from Guatemala, then Mexico. We have a large number of Colombians. We do have a significant number of Puerto Ricans, because I did not know that Clark had recruited a lot of them for baseball back, especially in the 2000s and 2010s, and still do to an extent. So we have a large number of Puerto Ricans as well. And after that, you have a sprinkle of people from the rest of South America. So we have some Argentinians. I have met some Peruvians and Bolivians. Not too much from the Caribbean. I have one buddy that's Cuban, a lot of Puerto Ricans. I'm one of a few Dominicans that do live in Dubuque. So we're scattered. We're a little bit from everywhere.
Yeah.
But, you know, everyone does like to come together at Latin night.
That's cool.
So bringing it back to Latin night.
And bringing that back to how powerful music is. And I think that's the key, is there's a music that will bring everyone together. So
there is. And again, there's nothing wrong with the Mexican genre of music, but it's very specific to their region. So when I took over, I knew right away there are some timeless songs and timeless genres that I know spans across Latin America that everyone recognizes. So like the old reggaeton, like Daddy Yankee, Don Omar, Wisin y Yandel, and then some of the new school as well. All of that is bleeding across all of Latin America, not just one region. So I knew playing old bachatas from Aventura, playing merengues, music that I knew everyone was hearing, it was going to bring them together. They love it. And then I was getting folks from Mexico, from Guatemala, from saying, hey, keep playing that music because I miss that music.
Interesting. And also I think that the fact that there's no cultural location even to go and find that, you know, unity that can be had. So hosting Latin nights is something that came out of the Smokestack organically, or someone came to them, or how'd that work?
So it happened organically because Susan and Scott, the previous owners, they are New Yorkers too. And in fact, it's crazy. My story and their story are in the same year. In fact, they're in the same timeline.
Coming to Dubuque?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because we didn't know this, but like when I was coming back from my second semester at Emmaus, they were going through the same storm that was rolling through the Midwest at the time, like snowstorm on I-80. Like,
are you guys like passing through each
other?
other?
We were probably passing each other without knowing it. But, you know, that's why New York and Dubuque have a little bit of a connection there. So Susan and Scott, they're like any other New Yorker, they're used to a wide variety of music from everywhere around the world. And Susan, she loves Latin music too. So she was looking for a DJ. She found one, wasn't a big fan of it, and then that's where I came in. And then she enjoyed how I played as well because she said he's bringing the variety I'm looking for.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool. And so how has that spilled over into? Well, actually, part of your story is really interesting because we have similar friends, and talk to me about how that spilled over into you forming
Dubuque Unidos.
Dubuque Unidos.
Yeah. So Alfonso and Natalie, and I take pride in this one because Alfonso's Dominican.
Yeah,
like he's Dominican straight.
He was the only Dominican I'd ever gotten to know.
He was the only Dominican a lot of Dubuquers ever met until they met me.
Yeah, and one of the, I have to say, and hopefully Alfonso's listening, like somebody I miss definitely, but just vibrant, excited, loving life, loves to meet people, loves to know what you're up to, what you're doing.
Completely off topic
so easy
of my story, but Alfonso and Natalie, when they danced, everybody watched because they had an energy that was clear. And the thing about music altogether is a question and an answer. Part of the song will ask the question and then you get the answer. That's how music is written. And in Latin music, it is very love focused and very poetically driven because Spanish is a Latin derived language and it's a romantic language.
Yeah.
So when I would play bachata, which is purposefully a music that is love and bitterness at the same time, when they danced, people were looking. People were watching.
They're watching the choreography of that.
They were smooth, and you could tell that they just that the look that they had while I was playing, it was just different. And I could tell. I
can see that.
So Alfonso and Natalie, a fall after I had taken over Latin Night. Actually, no, sorry, the same fall. My mistake. The same fall that I had taken over Latin Night. We were all together in that last Latin Night of the previous DJs. And that's when we all started to discover each other. Like, I remember asking him, because a Dominican, like, oh, you live in Dubuque. Oh, that's different. And then the Colombians, we met each other, and, like, we all started connecting. Like, wait, you live here, you live here, you live here. You're not just a visitor.
Right.
So a month later, Alfonso invites all of us to his baby shower. For him and Natalie's baby shower. And then that solidified it more. Like, oh, you actually live here, because we thought, oh, maybe they just work here, but they actually live in like Madison or something like that, because that was a common story too. No, and then from that was born another group, a Facebook page that we created called Café Latino. Café Latino was created by these two sisters. One of them is on our board, Ana Karina and Xiomara. And to any Latino who's listening there, join our group so that then you can keep up with all of our events, Café Latino.
It still exists.
It still exists.
Excellent.
I mean, we're a vibrant group. And what
Excellent.
we were doing at the time, and we can't do it right now, we have to rent spaces because we've gotten so big. But what we were doing at the time is we would schedule a time to meet at someone's house, do a potluck style event, play music, dance, and just have like a family time, like kind of like this Latino community family time. This goes back to like what I remember in the Bronx, what I remember in Yonkers, people who care. So when we started doing those, we started lining them up with Latin Night on purpose. But all of it started at that baby shower for Alfonso and Natalie, and Alfonso and Natalie bringing everybody together. That was the catalyst to Café Latino, which was the catalyst to bigger Latin Nights, which was the catalyst to Dubuque Unidos.
So a group of you met and started discussing this at that baby shower.
Well, at that baby shower, we were just all getting to know each other.
Yeah.
Like, oh, and then that's when we made the plan to do these little like get-togethers and line them up with Latin Night. Because it's like, hey, let's make a day out of this. And
of course.
So that was, if it weren't for them, if they didn't bring us all together, either it would have taken a little bit longer to happen or it wouldn't have happened.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so now, one of the biggest events that's taken place organically here in Dubuque, and that's happening again this year, right?
September 28th.
September 28th.
Same place, right by the smokestack, Latin Night again right after. It's, we didn't expect it to take this height. We as a
so you used the parking out of the courthouse?
Yeah. Okay. So, and I'll
build the street down?
Yeah. I'll tell you how it was kind of born. So Yara Lopez, our president, randomly posted in June, hey, I'm going to do a Latin Fiesta at the park. Who wants to help me plan it? I was one of the first people in their comment section. Let's do it.
Nice.
Like sign me up. There were a couple of us. The one we did at Washington Park in 2021, October. Well, yeah, like it's always going to be September, October. It was, we were expecting maybe 200-300 people. Ended up getting about 500. Great event. Solid. People loved it. We said, all right, let's plan it for next year. It wasn't great planning. We came across a lot of obstacles, but even through the obstacles, we started to, we were still planning it. We were still figuring everything out. And then that one was the first one we did at the smokestack, but we only used half the street. That's what we were able to use. We used half the street. We ended up getting close to 1,000, a little over 1,000 people for that one. That was
massive.
Yeah. So then we were like, okay, we clearly need the whole street. And actually we might need half of the parking lot behind the courthouse. So we did that. And that was last year's Fiesta. We were thinking, okay, we'll probably break 1,500. No, we got a little over 2,000. And
the weather that day was perfect too.
The weather at all three of them have been perfect. We're catching the weather at the right time because, Dubuque can get wonky once it starts changing season.
Yeah.
That's the truth. But we catch the weather at the right time. It was nice and warm. And there were people coming back to us saying, yo, felt like I was in Chicago for a second. I felt like I was in New York for a second. Like they felt this sense of like Latino community that they had never sensed in ever. And what even brought a tear to my eye and made me feel a lot of pride in this event was families that had not seen each other in 15 years saw each other.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, because a lot of them remember the days of the packing company when they would have their get-togethers at Jackson Park back in the 2000s. And then some of them had not seen each other since because they would go to different Spanish masses and just had opposing work hours. So there were some families that had seen each other for the first time in well over a decade, seeing each other at the Fiesta.
That's powerful.
It was. And when I heard that, I was like, this is how I know we're doing something right. We're doing something good.
It kind of makes me think what drives you to do this? What do you think it is that's innate inside of you that's driving you?
For me,
to work on this and others, I suppose. But for you personally,
for me personally, it's my story. It's just the fact that every time there was a project for me to do something on a country, I would always pick the Dominican Republic. I was always very proud to be Dominican. And my parents allowed me to live out that pride. They allowed me, in a Christian conservative home, dancing can be an iffy thing. But my parents let me learn merengue and bachata and salsa.
Really?
They let me listen to that music. They let me, and then through my sisters, I gained more knowledge, more music. And then through my father, who was a big music man himself. My dad, at one point, his iTunes library, back when the library mattered, had over 10,000 songs.
Wow.
Yeah. That was also back in the days of LimeWire. I'm not going to say that they were always legal, but, he still got his music. But they let me live out my passion. And then in New York, it's easy to be passionate to be Dominican because Dominicans have been a part of that fabric for a long time.
Yeah.
So when I came out to Dubuque, that fire was too hot to take out. My fire of me being me is always going to be too hot to take out. I'm always going to be a proud Dominican. I'm a proud American. I'm a proud Dominican.
But you'd be standing alone or maybe with one person, with that.
And I'll stand alone on that flag too.
Right.
So I know that that's what drives me to do it. And when people see me DJ other events and when they see me DJ Latin Night, for better or worse, they could tell a difference. Because they could tell that Latin Night, there's a different fire in me when I'm up there playing the music, mixing the music, and doing that. They could see a different fire. So that's what drives me. And to me, it's a bigger purpose when I know that my community has not had that voice out here. And for the rest of our board, it's similar. It's a similar passion for them. I mean, Yara Lopez, she's from LA, and she is proud to be Salvadorian, and she flies her flag, just like the way I fly my Dominican flag. The rest of our board, Clara, Lopez, Juan, Ana Karina, Lucelena, like everybody on our board, I'm missing a couple, so they listen. Well, I'm sorry. But everyone on our board has that same passion for their nation and being able to like bring it out and have fun. Because at the same time, like we all have passion and we're serious about our country.
Yeah.
But we also like to have fun.
Well, it's big for Dubuque, I think, because we need more exposure to culture. And nothing said negatively there. I think that just with this, Irish Catholic kind of German background of Dubuque is just maybe a few, but I think it's been a pretty isolated, for better or worse, place.
I mean, again, Dubuque does have a checkered racist history. And it's crazy because when I was coming to Dubuque, I was getting stories about that. So I did come with not fear, but like a level of like, all right, I got to keep my guard up. And I have heard many stories, and I've encountered some folks that, they got their issues. But I also realized that there is a level of innocent ignorance. Can ignorance be innocent? I guess ask yourself that question. But it's mainly ignorance of, I don't know any better. So that's why when they hear someone speak Spanish, they immediately assume Mexico.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of folks here that have not left the county and have not left the tri-state area. There are a lot of folks that if they did go on a cruise somewhere or they did go on a flight somewhere for their honeymoon, it was either Cancun or Punta Cana. Which,
on a cruise ship, yeah.
Yeah, which you're not getting the full view of that island or that country. And there's nothing wrong with that. I prefer my Dubuque friends and fellow neighbors to come out and get to know us, ask those questions, even the uncomfortable question. And I tell that at every time the Fiesta's coming close, I tell people this is not just a Latino event. This is for the whole community.
Which is clear. I mean, there's a few thousand people that showed up, and I think that a big portion of the Dubuque actually loved that.
Oh yeah, they loved it because our focus was come break bread with us.
It's cool.
Our focus was come eat food that I already know you like, because there's a number of restaurants here that are doing well. Come eat the food that I know you already like, and then come dance our music. Come listen to it, because trust me, that music, when you let it get into your bones and get into the bloodstream, you're forced to move. You can't help but move. And the Fiesta had smiles everywhere, people enjoying themselves everywhere, and that's that type of community that it helps to bridge the gap.
Yeah,
it helps to bridge that gap.
Well, because you mentioned having a racist history in Dubuque, I think that's definitely a tough topic for some people. And even my own body, I feel kind of like a flaring up of like defenses toward that. And I'm not a natural born Dubuque. I was here since age 14, but I also came from another small town in Northeast Iowa with the blessing of being connected to family in Chicago and having at least some exposure to other races and cultures. And then some of that push when I decided to go, travel abroad and study abroad and learn Spanish in Spain. That kind of opened me up to that world. Yeah. But then working in the restaurant industry, even after coming back, like I had one Hispanic dishwasher I could talk to, Tony, great guy. But like, it was exciting for me because I now knew how to communicate on that level in that language, but also had some cultural experiences that drove me that way. And I think that it takes popping yourself into that, to open yourself to that conversation and to really understand a culture that's different from your own. If you, like you said, if you are stuck here majority of your life and you're only seeing and feeling things from one direction, some of that stuff can carry on. So I personally don't feel like we have, I don't feel it, but I'm just a white guy from Dubuque, so I don't feel this sense of a racist past or even and continuing on with that. But I'd like to know, do you feel it's gotten better since you've been here for a decade?
I can say definitively that yes, Dubuque has gotten better. Dubuque still has a long way.
Where do you think the work is? How is that completed?
The work is going to be completed by having more events like our Fiesta where everyone shows up. And again, the best way to build a community is to start by breaking bread, not attacking one another, not going after each other's throats, and not being in fear either. So, and when I say that, I'm talking to my community. Like, my community lives in fear because, the state actively passes anti-immigrant bills. There are Dubuquers here who, again, have not left the area, and their perception of Latino is what they see on the news.
Yeah.
It is one-sided. Now, when I say that there's a level of ignorance, I'll tell one story. There was a wedding that I did in a small town in Iowa, just outside of Manchester. And at that wedding, the group of kids, it was a very country wedding. I was a fish out of water because it was a pure country wedding. I mean, the bride and groom had a camo infused, gown, wedding dress and tuxedo. So they were country, and they just got to know me because it got passed to me by another DJ friend. Anyways, the kids, they look at me and they're like, "Where are you from?" Like, they can tell I'm not from the area.
Yeah.
Like, "Where are you from?" And I'm like,
these kids really just ask that question. Your hair is different. Like, these kids are crazy in my brain. And I was like, it was a moment where I had to look at myself. I was like, they've probably never been out of the town. Like, so I was like, oh, well, I'm from New York, but my family were from a country called the Dominican Republic. Where in Mexico is that? And I was like, oh, they're pressing my buttons. And I,
you were acting, but they clearly, it's innocent ignorance.
It is absolute ignorance. I was like, it's an island here. I explained it to them. And I'd be okay. And they were nice kids. So does racism exist on Dubuque? I'm just going to say it. Yes, it does. And anyone who says otherwise is blind. But there's also ignorance that is innocent exist. And again, I would go back and ignorance be innocent. I believe it can be. Yes, that exists too. So an event like the Fiesta is just a phenomenal way for them seeing, oh, there's a lot of flags here. So there must not just be Mexico.
Yeah.
Oh, they have different types of food. One from Guatemala, one from Mexico, one from Nicaragua. They have food from everywhere. So there's variety. Okay. Oh, they're nice people. I remember speaking at an event for the Community Foundation, and the event had a lot of older Dubuquers in there. And they wanted us to shout out our events for all the community leaders. And I said, all of you here are leaders in your families. That was a nice way of saying that they're old. But I said, you're all leaders in your family. If you want the best way to support and just be a part of our community as well, just come to our event. Just set it on your calendar and just come to it. That's all I'm going to ask. I don't need you to vote a certain way, act a certain way. No. Just come to the event as you are and break bread with it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope you understand. I think you do, but that's so important to have that mentality and that understanding, because realistically, this is the more of a melting pot we become, the better off everyone is.
Yeah.
But I don't think this is a problem that exists only in Dubuque. I think,
not
I think it almost, that's what I think it offends me, is that, we're still living in a racist society. And because, for better or worse, the internet has become such a polarizing space, then we have these, breakout groups that become, they get maybe more airtime than they're actually capable of handling. They're not represented by much. So,
and the best way to fight that is actively going to these events and on both sides.
Yeah.
And I'm not the type of person that's like, oh, right in the middle. It's like, no, if you approach things honestly and you approach it like, say, hey, I'm here to learn. Like, I just want to get to know people and I just want to learn people. You're going to have a good time and you're going to make some friends. And right now, Dubuque is experiencing an age of heroes where you have a lot of community leaders from different communities doing really cool stuff. The Juneteenth event the last 2 years have been phenomenal. And I bet if you would have told a Dubuquer that there was going to be a Juneteenth event 20 years ago, they're going to be absolutely not, probably cursing your face. But now that event had not just the African-American community, but yes, our white American community too.
Yeah.
Ricky Brett
And Hispanic communities.
and everybody enjoying themselves. Same thing with the Fiesta. You have groups like She Unites that is more focused on, a women's and female agenda. You have the MFC that now has a director that cares about everyone in town and wants to serve the town and the city itself. When you have people that actually just care about one another and then care about Dubuque, you're going to have a good time. At that point, no one's going to be apprehensive. No one's going to be annoyed. And like, I've gone to the chili cook-offs. Why? I want to get to know my Dubuque neighbor. I mean, granted, I used to live on Bluff Street, so it happened only a couple blocks down. But yeah, me going to also an event that is predominantly white, I'm going to give it air quotes. Those are events for you to be at so that people know that, hey, I really just want to get to know you. And if we approach it from that attitude, I don't have to love you. I didn't need more best friends. I have enough friends, and I have a woman that loves me and I love her. And a family that definitely loves me and I love that. So I don't need more people to love. But I would love to work with everyone around me. That goes into networking. That goes into being also a good business person. You don't have to love everybody, but you also should just be respectful and at least appreciate the human dignity in them.
Wow.
So if we approach it that way, if we go to events with that mentality, you're going to have a good time and you're going to make new friends. Guaranteed. And it's those little nugget events that start smoothing over those race talks.
Yeah.
That's what we'll start doing. Not in, I don't want to put down activism, but brash and abrasive activism will seldom change a mind. But bringing someone to the table and breaking bread with them and respecting their human dignity, that might change their mind.
That's so powerful. I echo that entirely, and I don't even know. I see that. And I think there's, excuse me. I think there's some leaders in our community that are capable of doing so much, and I'm glad that you have this mentality, because you have to meet people where they are.
You do,
and you know, it can be frustrating. But when you share those frustrations openly and vocally to those people, it becomes off-putting. And then it becomes divisive.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, you were feeling it.
Yeah, and not that I feel threatened. I think that I want more of this. I want a more inclusive and I'd love to see, when you look at the census reports, and I'm going to misquote because, but like, Dubuque, let's say it's 89 or 98 or whatever % white, and then everything else beyond that. It'd be way cooler if we were, at a much more even keel. I don't think there's anywhere in the States that has, a perfect sampling of culture, because we are humans and societally we gather and it's just the makeup. I don't study that, but
The closest city that you'll get to is New York.
Is New York. Yeah. Interesting. And so that's why it's exciting for you to be able to bring some of that here, but you got to be in it for the long play, because it's going to take time. You can't just go and shapeshift a community, but you can make an impact by being approachable and genuine, but not abrasive, like you said. So I think that's the biggest takeaway to the people who in this community who are doing that kind of work.
I mean, you're going to be frustrated. This is frustrating work. It's annoying work. And yes, people have irked me. The neighbors have irked me. City officials have irked me. But that's why you got to have a much higher North Star.
Yeah.
I mean, that, you shouldn't be doing any of this if you're clout chasing.
Yeah.
Because trust me, DJ Papi and LatinX and the Fiesta itself, those things started very small and very humble. Yeah, now I could say that, LatinX is hot and we're having a good time.
Yeah.
Fiesta is big and going to be arguably the biggest event at, one-day event in Dubuque all year. But all of it started small, and all of it takes a lot of work behind the scenes. And it, regarding the census, look, I'm gonna keep it real. If you were to remove the Latino population from Dubuque and on the snap of a finger, the economy in Dubuque is going to go to a standstill. And what I mean by that is you have a lot of workers in factories and the restaurants, and also even in our local banks and credit unions that are Latino that work there. So when somebody has the attitude that is mimicking, I'm gonna just phrase it that way, mimicking that of the mainstream media and the news, and also like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, that divisiveness, understand that even though Dubuque is over 90% predominantly white, if you remove any of these folks from the equation, the economy here is going to hit a standstill in the city, and that's a guarantee.
It's interesting. I don't even think about it from the economic standpoint. I think just culturally, I think it would suck.
And it would suck.
But you wouldn't see it as impactfully as what you're pointing out.
No, you'll feel it immediately that way. And it's the same thing that I tell people, do you want to make Chief Jensen, police Chief Jensen's job harder by being divisive and then creating an atmosphere of violence? Like, again, you're not going to change anyone's mind being abrasive. You're not going to change anyone's mind being attackful. And you're gonna feel a pressure of like, I feel offended. I feel like I'm being attacked, and your innate instinct is to attack back. But that method has never and will never historically work.
Yep.
You have to come at it from a level of being meek, being gentle, and saying like, okay, I see that you have one point of view. Let me present mine, and then let's see how
powerful. I wonder how that relates to your upbringing in such a probably evangelical Christian home, or just having the biblical study behind that too. But you mentioned the North Star, so like, what is your North Star? Where are you taking yourself? Where are your dreams we've been blessed to have you here in Dubuque for the last decade. I know we had coffee a while back and talked, but like, where do you think you want to go? Where do you personally see yourself or see the operations that you've played a role in here going? So kind of on two levels, the legacy that you're beginning to build in Dubuque, and then you yourself.
So again, if you would have told me I was going to be here this long back in 2013, I would have said no. Right now, me and my lady, we have, the aspiration to get married soon. We have the aspiration to have children. That was something I booked that early in our relationship too, was like, I'm never going to have kids in Dubuque. And now that an active conversation where it's like, all right, I might have my first kid in Dubuque. Who knows how long? In terms of timeline, I tell people like I'm here in Dubuque at least another, 3 to 4 years, and that can extend. Every year could be another 3 to 4 years. And before I know it, I'm in Dubuque 20 years versus just 10. My North Star, first of all, my North Star is my faith. So my faith in Jesus Christ. That's my North Star. That's what drives me. And I fail and I fall short of the glory of God, as Romans 3:23 will say, all the time. But I know that I'm faithful, and I know that his mercies are new every morning, as the Psalms tells. So that's my North Star. Regarding what I do for the community, that North Star plus my deep desire and love for where I come from, my heritage, my culture, the good, bad, and the ugly about it, being able to bring that, and having been that person that was in a city that had every culture around it. People don't understand, New York City speaks over 80 different languages. There are over 200 represented people groups that live in the city of New York from different parts of the world and tribes. So I live surrounded by cultures and had to learn how to navigate each and every one of those cultures. And my parents, being Dominican immigrants, had to learn that too. I had to learn. I had friends that were, their parents were straight from Ireland and, owned pubs in Yonkers, and, they played their music. Like this weekend, I know they're going to party it up good because St. Patty's weekend. Yeah. I grew up with Italians, and I have to say that unofficially, but I unofficially grew up with some mob kids whose parents had dealings with the mobs, and they were Italian. I grew up with kids from Eastern Europe who had, there were a lot of them were Albanians that escaped the Kosovo War. I grew up around a melting pot of people, and Dubuque is slowly turning also into a melting pot. We have a lot of immigrants coming to the city. Whether Dubuque likes it or not, they're coming this way. Why? Dubuque still has a lot of work. Dubuque still has a relatively strong economy. So you're going to get different people. You're going to get people that come with different ideas as well and different culture. The best way to smooth over that transition is by both parties agreeing to learn about one another and to at least just be open-minded, not to be best friends, but let me just learn about you.
Interesting. Like when you're visiting another foreign country, you get to learn the cultural norms, like it may be inappropriate for, to hold hands as a couple in a certain culture. I heard that at a church, the pastor was talking about this. I wish I didn't remember where they were, but he immediately went, when he landed there, and said, tell me, give me the cultural education. What's acceptable, what's not in this culture, because he would be there for a short period of time as a priest. And I thought, wow, that's interesting, because when you get on a cruise ship, or if you get, if you're traveling soft touch, if you call it that, you're not interested in that. But when you're going to go embed yourself in a community, just learning, in India, you don't kick a cow out of the way. You know what I mean? So, but if you're a farmer, you grew up on a farm in Iowa, and you encounter this cow that's just chilling in the middle of the road, oh, sure, don't get it out of the way. You don't need that act and get it out of the way. I mean, that you would be in jail for that. So I'm making a very wonky example, but
it's a relevant example because, one, when I came to Dubuque, I learned about farmer culture more. And again, I'm coming with these stories about, racism, Dubuque this, Dubuque that. And the farmers around this area were some of the nicest people I met in my life. And I was like, dude, these are great people. These are nice people. They're genuine, salt of the earth people.
Yeah, this community has come from a place that I've always felt was just absolutely welcoming, genuine. They gorgeous folks. But not exposed to a whole lot of
haven't been
difference and change.
They haven't been exposed, and that's okay. It's just that the best way for us to learn about one another is not going to be any form of attack or salaciousness or just like
social media is a really challenging space. You get sucked into that web of these short scroll through things that actually, as we're learning through AI and different, things, you can put such propaganda that's just genuinely going to activate. That's what I fear, I think, right now with how easily you can get sucked in. I actually recently deleted Facebook from my phone. I know that this is getting put out. David, thank you for doing that. But I get sucked into it too, and then my psyche gets completely wrapped in a different mentality, and it's not healthy. It's not at all healthy.
It's not. Social media is definitely dangerous, and if you don't know how to digest the information, or at least know how to look at both sides, source it properly, it's going to be awful. Social media, same as music.
It's similar to the news as well. That's a little bit touchy because,
what we
I'm not going to say that it's CNN or Fox News or depending on whatever you watch, and this is being played on social media. So obviously there's good content out there. I think wholesome conversations. That was the whole purpose of me deciding to stick this out there, is to have these types of interactions. I think that's where I've wanted to go with this, and then make these public conversations, because I have bold conversations in public all the time with people, but it just lives right there between us. And I'd love to bring those. I think we've nailed that. We didn't even intend upon it talking about a lot of this, but I think it's really important that we show how conversation works.
We should. Having a conversation is the most basic human attribute. Remember, the stories, the legends, anything in any culture began as a story around a campfire. That's how it started. It began with conversations. Ideas should not be left in an echo chamber. And that's the thing is, and this is on both sides of the Dubuque just sphere, is that you have families that have lived in their echo chamber, in their community, that have not expressed their ideas outside of it, so they think that they're correct. And then the same thing even on the side of the non-Dubuquer, I'll call, the non-native Dubuquer. They have lived in the echo chamber of their culture and their society, so they've not been able to share one another and then check one another's ideologies. I did come a little bit more open-minded. Well, closed-minded to an extent, because I'm like New York this, New York that. But Dubuque helped me open my mind even a little bit more, because I've had to find people that believe different things and find the good in them. Mm-hmm. If you're the type of person that is one-sided, anybody who supports Trump is this person, anybody who supports Biden is this person, you're not a serious person. And you can't tell me otherwise. You're not serious. If you're a serious person, one, you're going to still be willing to have the conversation with the person with opposing views and still respect their dignity.
Yeah.
That's having a bold conversation. That's having an honest conversation. And that's what I try to have with the Dubuque when it comes to the Latino community, because I know what they're digesting regarding our people.
Holding opposing views while not losing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It just boils down to that human dignity. Like, that's still a human being.
Yeah.
I study archaeology. If both you and that person died in the same spot and 1,000 years later, archaeologists come and check your bones, there's very few markers that's going to distinguish between you two. They're just going to probably tell what your gender is, and that's it. That's all they're going to.
Possibly what type of work you did, depending how banged up your shins.
Exactly. Yeah. If everyone in the factories drop dead at once, they're probably going to see some different bone structures than everybody gets, at somewhere else, because that's how it is. But either way, the archaeologists are not going to be able to tell exactly if you were Black, if you were white, if you were Latino, if you were Marshallese. They're not going to tell any of that information. Maybe they'll see some variation.
Now with today's DNA technology and all the different things, who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
Man, what a conversation. And there's so much that was talked about between you and David, and I was able to, enjoy, that we didn't even get into, but just kind of to wrap it up. Thank you, first and foremost, we've connected now. It's only the second time really connecting for a conversation, but thank you for doing the work you're doing in Dubuque, and all the people you named that are on different boards. I think these are like powerful people in this community, because you're bringing a sense of comfort, safety, community, and home to a small group of people who don't feel like they have it. Like myself, whether I like it or not, I walk out of the grocery store or into the grocery store, and I can't go 2 aisles without somebody saying, "Hey, Kyle." And it's like, yeah, it's not frustrating. Don't get me wrong, I love it, but because it's a small enough community, it gets its hand around you.
Yeah.
But if you're coming from somewhere new, or like you said, immigrants who are just finding a place to feel and comfort and call home, you've created a platform through Dubuque Unidos and Unidos, Dubuque.
So yes, it means United Dubuque.
United Dubuque. So all together Dubuque we talked about last time we were chatting with Michael, but I think that's huge to create that space and be growing something that's going to become bigger than you've ever anticipated it, to create a shared space for connection.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what this whole podcast boils down to, is this central connection. We're all humans living in this place that's a beautiful, incredible place, and we're all beautiful, incredible human beings. How do we have some conversations, meet other people, and connect over things? We should have food. We should start getting we are now seeking a sponsor who wants to provide food, and we'll do an intro, outro, or like the hot sauce test or something like that.
I was telling them we should do like Joe Rogan style, have like whiskey and cigars or something.
Yeah.
Those effects.
Something wild. Absolutely.
Go ahead.
I
was gonna say I wanted to give him this last thought.
Yeah.
Because I've gotten time to learn about the Dubuquer. I've lived with the Dubuquer, and I mean, 10 years here, I might as well call myself a Dubuquer too.
Yeah.
Dubuque is in the position to be a phenomenal city. It's in the position to both welcome newcomers and still respect the people that have been here for generations. It is definitely in that position. The economy in the city is good. The people in the city are relatively good. If everyone were to actually end it, and it's going to sound naive, but I'm just being serious, and the Fiesta is a testament to this. If everyone just really decides to, hey, I'm going to go to your event and work with you, or just get to know you. If everyone approached it with that mentality, the African American, the Latino, the Marshallese, the Saudi, the whoever, wherever you're from, the Dubuquer who's 10 generations here since, Julian Dubuque himself. If everyone approaches it that way, Dubuque is going to get even better and it's going to be even more fun. And we can avoid the mistakes of a lot of the major cities. But this is a gem of a city. Like, I do honestly believe it's little mantra of being the masterpiece on the Mississippi. Like, it really does have that potential, but everyone's got to work together.
That's powerful, dude. That's as an outro, I'll leave it at that. I think
want to end it with that thought.
You got it down, and thank you for doing the work you do. We didn't even talk about what you do in your day job with consulting for time insurance, and you're also you've mentioned that you focused in on the Latin community.
Yep.
to really assist them in knowing more about their financial future and leaving their legacy and providing opportunities for insurance. And I think that's
you got to invite me back.
That's admirable. Absolutely. And what you're doing with that. But also I really think, Dubuque Unidos is fascinating, and count me in. I want to help. I'm going to check my calendar, make sure that September 28th. And if I can be of any service to that'd be awesome.
Hey, we're also always looking for sponsors. We're always looking for people who want to help out. And yeah, September 28th, lock it in on the calendar, right by the smokestack behind the courthouse. It's going to be a big part. I tell people, come with an empty stomach.
That's cool.
Come with an empty stomach. You're going to have plenty of food.
DJ Papi going to be there?
DJ Papi's always going to be there, especially that night. So if you're a parent, schedule the sitter, get that settled.
So it's an all day or an all night? Because can you bring the kids during the day?
Bring the kids during the day. The event's going to probably end at 8. And then you go send them to grandma or grandpa, or send them to
go to smoke dinner and enjoy the rest of the day.
Come back and enjoy some, Latin music at the smokestack. It's a good time. It's a good time.
Cool. Awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Great. Cool.